Now, it goes without saying, of course, that we at the Global Game are relieved that Tom Glover, Alex King and the Channel 10 cameraman, who all suffered injury at the hands of these thugs, are physically okay. That's the most important thing. On a wider level, where to from here? I don't think I've ever been more despondent about the state of affairs as I was after the weekend just gone. Every stereotype that we've fought hard against for years was underlined in triplicate on Saturday evening. Every fracture in the game exposed for the world to see. That this story made headlines globally the day before a World Cup final should be cause enough for those involved to hang their heads in shame. Sadly, I fear these idiots would only revel in their notoriety. I doubt they're football fans, but if they are, and they may be, then the answer's simple. Enforceable lifetime bans, which you've already seen for 2 for pitch invaders, and jail terms for those who cause injury. Victory will be sanctioned too as a club, rightly so. Even if the majority of their fans did behave in the correct manner, sanctions may yet be applied to Melbourne City as well. But that's the easy bit. Now, the genesis to this was, of course, the APL's decision to sell the next 3 grand finals to Sydney. I'm not suggesting for a moment that it's any excuse. It's not. Peaceful protest is a democratic right. Lawlessness isn't. And it's not the first time the original style Melbourne group has created problems. Even so, it's difficult to imagine this scale of trouble had the APL decision not been taken, especially as the Victory chair, Anthony Di Pietro, rode back from his involvement in it, setting in chain a domino effect which saw clubs duck for cover as the mushroom cloud of fallout grew ever larger. The timing of the announcement can also be called into question, coming as it did in the build-up to one of the competition's biggest fixtures. Now, inevitably with football in Australia, the blame game is in full swing. Even I received an unsolicited text from a member of the coaching staff at an A-League club over the weekend, suggesting it was my fault and other members of the media that this trouble had occurred for fanning the flames in criticising the APL's decision. Essentially, he was telling me to try to remember which side my bread was buttered on. Now, this is part of the immaturity of the game here. He knows who he is, and he's wrong, especially in his assertion that I'm employed to be a voice of the game. I'm employed to cover it, not by football, but by Channel 10 and SEN. The media, of course, have to respond to events. And for people like Brosque and I, who are voices in the game, when these things happen, we're asked for our opinions. And given the complexity of this decision, forming opinions aren't always easy. Come out on the side of the money that the game obviously needs, but impacts upon sporting fairness, and you get pelters from fans who question your credibility. Come out on the side of the fans, and you leave yourself wide open in the aftermath of incidents like this. The alternative, of course, is to stay silent. Then you get accused of hiding. You simply cannot win. As I said in last week's show, being a journalist today is becoming almost an impossible job. We want the game to succeed, of course, but we're not PR agents. Most people think we should be, but of course, only for their side of the argument. Independent media is almost non-existent in the mainstream these days in all walks of life. That's downright dangerous for democracy, never mind sport. Which is why the maxim always has to be, call it as you see it. Now, I thought the APL's decision was wrong, if for understandable reasons, and their messaging was rather chaotic, evidenced by the fact that some clubs almost immediately broke ranks with it. That left Danny Townsend alone, like a shag on a rock, to take the flak. Now, some have quoted Stephen Lowe's words from a few years ago when he told the game to be careful what it wished for, calling them prophetic. Maybe. But let me remind people as well that had his board implemented the necessary evolution at the time and kept everyone inside the tent, the full-scale revolution that followed would never have happened. That too was a game of power, ego and money. They are all too regular occurrences at all levels of this game. And it seems that whoever comes out on top, the game is the loser and ends up further divided. And therein lies a pretty big problem. We're now seeing some people, some fans of former NSL clubs, for example, excluded from the top flight in 2005, of course, expressing their glee and telling us they told us so after Saturday. As one media colleague said over the weekend, if the game has alienated fans of old soccer, and now many in new football, then what's left? What is the solution? Rip it up and start again? No. The answer, and it's always been the answer, is to come together. So I call upon Football Australia to hold an extraordinary summit. Involve reps of the A-League clubs, NPL clubs, grassroots, what's left of the football media to cover it, and most of all, the fans. They are the voice that has been excluded for too long, and on Saturday we saw that the lunatic fringe will take that exclusion to the furthest degree given the right provocation and take the law into their own hands. That cannot be allowed to continue. We have to find a way forward, and that includes everyone and puts football and the fans back at the heart of the game. That won't be easy. It may even prove to be impossible, but football has to try. Conduct a full review of what's happened over the last decade, by government decree if necessary, yes, again, because these problems have their roots in a series of decisions made by the game's leaders over the last 10 years, including World Cup bids and expansion, the relationship with active fans, the governance war, unbundling, and many, many others. On the back of Saturday, we have reopened the door to all the old prejudices regarding the sport. Repairing it is going to take an awful lot of work, but it's got to start somewhere. Football will not die, but the A-League has sustained a heavy blow in the wake of Saturday night.